be the conversation, challenges and prospects. Who knows? Maybe after today's advice, if you own a small business, you can make as much money as Tesla recently reported at 101 million
Yes,
dollars
yes,
in
yes.
Bitcoin profits.
That's how much. Yeah, exactly. They sold Bitcoin and made a bunch of buco money, but also their deliveries for Q1 2021 were very impressive as well. The more vehicles they deliver, the more money they make. So yeah, good on them.
So prospects for the SMEs. Any
Oh,
chance that could obviously you guys can touch on that. So yeah, get a pen and paper and see maybe you can touch that amount. Yeah.
all right, thank you so much. So yeah, Debola, the first thing I wanted to ask you was the purpose of SMEs, because there's an old quote that popped up online. Yeah, I just tweeted it out for our viewers. So, I think it was Ibuko Awoshika. We all know who she is, right? A titan in the business world. I think this was on the platform. I think this quote was on the platform, that annual discussion where public sector and private sector people come and talk about different things in the country. She said, quote, and I think this was from 2016, if I remember correctly, and it just popped up online again. So I figured let me throw this at you to define the purpose of SMEs. Entrepreneurship is a national service. People who dare to build businesses do it out of the love of their country. Lagos, you can chime in. 0809 44409. So Debola, you're an entrepreneur? Are you doing it for love of your country, or?
I am definitely not doing it for
Oh,
love of
you're not.
country. I think that that quote is a possible perspective that a person can have or decide to.
the the embarking on this journey. In your view, and this is something that always comes up when it comes to SMEs, since we're talking about again SME challenges and prospects.
Yeah.
I think this is. I mean, you can maybe this is a challenge or a prospect, but
Yeah.
funding has funding for SMEs, in your view, has it improved over the years?
Definitely.
It has.
It has.
Okay.
Like I have right here in front of me companies all over Africa who were funded in the last number of years in Africa, and it's quite a number of companies that we're seeing here that have been funded by both local and international, investors.
Okay.
Right. So the opportunity for, I mean, being somebody who has worked in the funding space a bit and still is, we found out that the opportunity for funding is there. It is you being able to prove what we call the market validation. That's you actually have a market that you can access and that you can harness, and that you have the structure that can be invested in. These two things are usually the challenge, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs in Nigeria do not take the pain to do things the right way, right? We focus mostly on the sole proprietorship model, which is I want to run a one man entity, and then that model now skyrockets into, you find out that it's majorly just a buying and selling venture. I want to buy and then resell, or I want to produce and then sell. It's around that model. There is little thought given to things like, ensuring that your books are in order, proper financial accounting, right? Such that, ask the average Nigerian entrepreneur, show me your books, just your basic income and expense statement on this business for the last 1 year. You'll find that not many are able to show you something structured and well put together. So usually that's the foundation of the problem when we talk about SME. Structure is a major headache, right? And it's understandable because for many SMEs, I mean, the skill that you have really is what you're deploying into what you're producing or the service you're offering. You do not necessarily have the financial or accounting skills, to have proper financial or accounting put together. You do not necessarily have the business intelligence or the business knowledge to make sure that you have some form of corporate governance that will make an investor look at your business and feel comfortable enough to invest in it, right? You might not, have that knowledge. And so what we always tell SMEs is that, look, there are basics you can do, right? You can have a basic, I write out how much I have made, right, on D, and I write out what I am spending, right? Or there are basic tools that you can now use to track your inflows and outflows. And many of these tools, many of these softwares are free. For example, Wave Apps, it's an accounting software that you can use, and there's a free version of it that will give you good quality in terms of putting your books together, right? So there are basic things. I mean, and also in an environment like in Nigeria where there is some form of entrepreneurial training, there is some form of entrepreneurial show that you can watch. There's a lot of free information available. I mean, that's something that you can, if you're serious about it, you can go on Google, you can go for this seminar or that seminar that someone is offering, learn, meet the right people, form the right relationships. And the other thing about our environment is there's a very high level of collaboration as well. I mean, if you go to entrepreneurial summits or shows, you can meet one or two people, see how you can strike some form of bargain. All right, so this is what I do, this is my business, this is what I can do for you. I see that you're only a consultant or you're a financial accountant. I need somebody to help me on my books. How can we trade value on this, right? Can I offer you this and then I pay you a discounted amount for you to offer me this, right? But the funding opportunities are there. If you're starting off, you most likely have to do the brick and mortar, right? You have to build slowly, painfully, but you can do that and then scale in time to get to the point where somebody will look at you and say, okay, right, this is something I can fund. And then there are different types of funding, to be honest, right? For a startup entrepreneur, I mean, there's equity. There are equity funders, right? Venture capitalists, angel investors. There's the loan form of funding where taken from a financial institution, a microfinance bank, or a deposit money bank or something. But I mean, popular for most SMEs is look out for family and friends, right? Look at family and friends. Crowdfunding, I mean, it won't get you all the way, but it will get you some way, right? If you can put the basic things together. So, I mean, if you're not even able to convince your family and your friends, to put something in what you're doing, so maybe you have to look at it again, you know.
Very in depth answer there from Debola Ajayi, who we're talking to again on Smooth 98.1 FM about the challenges and prospects for SMEs. Already have a message from Sheung, who is talking about saying, okay, he says Wave is wonderful. It encouraged him to learn the basics of bookkeeping for his business, and got an accountant to drill into him as well. So good stuff there. All right, so Debola, thank you for that. Costs. In order to keep costs in check, how much attention should be paid to the size of your team when you're starting out?
I mean, basic business rule is, first of all, if I'm going into a business environment or I'm going into a business venture, of course, I first and foremost should do a cost benefit analysis. I should know how much this is going to cost me, right? Before even putting one feet into, do some basic cost, write out the things you need to do, how much it will cost you right now. Depending what you want to do, usually will determine your cost level at which you want to start. So I remember sometime there's this lady who came to us, had this great idea about having a food truck where she could primarily do food like churros, waffles, those kind of finger foods, right?
Okay.
And she was excited. Somebody was going to give her the truck, and all she needed to do was just focus on the raw, the raw materials for producing the churros and waffles and whatever other fingers we're trying to make, and then also the machine, the waffle machine, and all that. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I know you're excited about this idea. It sounds good, but let's just do a CB analysis. That's a cost benefit analysis for you, and just know exactly what you're about to get yourself into. By the time we're done with that, she abandoned the project.
No way.
And the interesting thing is, I mean, we saved her a lot of money. What she paid me and my company to do that cost benefit analysis was nowhere near what she would have spent if she just went blindly into, okay, so I have a truck. Let me buy a waffle machine. Let me buy a toasting machine. Let me buy a freezer. So by the time you make all those purchases, okay, let me hire two people. Let me get the flour, the egg, the milk, and then let me do some marketing. Let me start. By the time you spend all that money, it's a fraction. What you will pay somebody to sit down and do a CB analysis for you before you start is a fraction of what you'll have spent when you. I have another friend who told me, "Oh, my mom just got was it pension or something? Right, I can't remember. And she wants to start some form of business, so she wants to get a shop at Tejo Show and then get a cold room. The food never goes wrong. Everybody always buys food." And I laughed. I said, the market does not operate that linearly. When the food never goes wrong, the market never. I said, just get a consultant to run this thing for you first. Run the numbers, run the research, just get information. You can never overprice information. Get information. Of course, they didn't listen, went ahead to do it, and of course, we know how that ended. It crashed. So get information. That's always important, because when you get information, then you can determine the level at which you want to enter in markets, right? So, for example, in the what we call the pets, Coca-Cola, right, soft drinks industry, right? You can decide to become a Coca-Cola competitor, right? That's, you want to put out your own drink with your own brand. Or you can decide to enter into that industry by partnering with Coca-Cola to recycle the used bottles and give it back to them, right? So you see, once you gather information on an industry, you might not be able to start at the cost level that you originally intended, but that information will help you figure out where you can start that will be affordable for you, more cost efficient, and then you go from there. Second thing is, in business, there are two major types of cost, right, for simplicity purposes. There is your, what we call your capital or your sunk cost, right? So, for example, that deals with things like you want to rent a facility for a year, you want to buy a generator, right? Maybe if it's fashion, for example, fashion production, you want to buy the sewing machines, right? All of these are capital expenses. They are one-off expenses that you will do that will last maybe like at least a year to a number of years, right? Then you have your overhead costs, you have your diesel, you have your salaries, you have those things that are month on month. Now, how you design your cost structure is, first of all, what is the market demand? If the market demand is you have one, let's say you have a textile factory, right? Or maybe you have some fashion house who is bringing you what you were to produce, and you're into some form of agreement with this fashion house, and this fashion house needs like a volume of, let's say, 5,000 school uniform shorts produced every month. They need 5,000 round neck PYC t-shirts produced every month. You already have a standing order of 10,000. It is signed, it's a contract, it's month on month. Then you can set up an outfit and a human resource structure that helps you make sure that you're meeting that demand month on month, right? But don't set up a factory, get the equipment, sink money into diesel generator, things like that, hire 15 people, then go out there and start looking for the market. Gotcha. While you're looking for the market, you're paying salaries, right? And your cost structure is already counted. So make sure that your market is set before you design the recurrent portion of your cost structure.
All right, so we have a break coming up. After this break, we will be back with more. Remember, you can send your messages to 080-9444-0981 for Business Hub. And you've been listening to the voice of Debola Ajayi. He's the Deputy GMD, Trans Alliance Group. And of course, Rhodas. Back with more after this break. Stay with us.
And tips
Stop. Very in depth, man. Very in depth.
Business Hub on Smooth. Stay tuned.
Guy, I
What's in the make you scatter house
I
like
don't
this?
negotiate today at 3.5.
help me see
Me, I
the
don't
Airtel
need-
SIM.
You know, you said it's
I'll
things
carry
that
and give Shade
now
yesterday.
mechanic workshop
But you
person
not
dey
did this
with
and again.
negotiate spare parts.
Yeah.
These are professional services now.
Now today you go back out. On top Airtel SIM. Yes, so
See
if you
how
don't
we
reach
go
15 days when you never
clear
use your
everything.
Airtel SIM, go find them now.
I will call
Guess
am
why?
again.
Ogbonge
I will call
Awoof
am. I'll
on
get
top
back to you.
of- Hey, get 2,000 naira airtime plus extra 200 MB for
Confirm it.
just 200 naira.
Let me
The
call
more
him
you
now
recharge,
and see
the
what-
more you are Awoof. To begin enjoying this Awoof, just dial *241*7 hash. Terms and conditions dey o.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Next time you're shopping for quality
How long is this
margarine,
break?
choose the one that's perfect for
How
so
long
many
is the
types
break?
of
About
meals
another
and
minute?
has great value too.
How long is the
Choose
break?
Devon King's margarine. Devon King's margarine
1
is
minute.
available in
So we have
stores
how
and
many
retail
long- how
outlets
much we
near
have
you. Choose unbeatable
How many minutes
value.
left for the
Choose
show?
Devon
No,
King's
for this, for the break.
margarine.
40, 50 seconds and counting.
All right, so you got 50 seconds.
Besides, you can always video call me.
What if your battery runs out?
I've got my power bank.
And when your power bank runs out?
Babe, I've got my laptop.
Okay, wait.
Can you hear
What
me?
if your data runs out?
Babe,
This will be
you
your
know we
money.
never run out of
Negotiate
data.
am.
Never run out of data with Airtel Home Broadband Unlimited Ultra plans. Enjoy unlimited data with no speed cap plus extra data daily, so you never have to worry about running out. Visit www.airtel.com.ng/HBB to get started.
Babe, but I just left the house.
Yes,
How long more do we have in store?
calling all the way.
5:45 is when we wrap up, right? Yeah.
What?
5:45 is when we wrap up.
Yeah, that's what we're at, 45.
From today.
Tools and
Okay,
tips
heading
for a
back in.
successful business.
Atmosphere for our young people to be creative, innovative, to participate in the ICT revolution.
Business Hub on Smooth. Stay tuned.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to Business Hub here on Smooth 98.1. Wrote us in the studio, of course, with Debola Ajayi. And we will remember if you have questions talking about SME challenges and prospects. And I know so far, so good. I'm pretty sure there's a lot that you've learned. I think I even remember, if I must make a confession here, I tried to start a business because I thought it'd be nice. It was supposed to be I can't believe I'm confessing this, but look, when you were speaking, right, I was like, God, I wish if I had known, because so I tried to start the business because I'm all fit fam and everything. So I figured, look, everybody's looking for banana bread and baked cookies and so I was very excited. I mean, I think I remember even baking samples for some people downstairs, at the office, and I was so excited. I was like, this is gonna be so good. And then I forgot to do the, cost analysis and so on. And what I realized was the cost to actually make healthy cookies, for example, with the coconut oil that you have to put in there, especially even with the, apart from the coconut oil, keeping it healthy, obviously you can't use sugar. It has to be honey or even brown sugar, and then dark chocolate. I didn't exactly figure out how, and look, let me just say this. I might as well have gone to the strip club. I just said, hey, here's 2 to 3 million naira. Or hey, or just gone to my balcony and said, hey, let me just put this in a nice stash and then light it on fire. So I wish I had this info before I made that investment. But you live and you learn. So it's a pleasure to hear you speak about this. A bit too late, but yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you guys, you've heard Shola's testimony. It fits right into what Debola is saying. Debola again about cost benefit analysis and information.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned cold rooms and overhead costs, power in this country. Debola, it seems like it's something that no SME can escape. How does one manage it?
Look, there's no management in terms of, it's what it is, right? Our power situation in the country directly contributes to humongous cost structures for startups, right? Because you gotta do the diesel or you gotta do the petrol to keep your installation going. There is no way around that, right? In that sense of power generation. The other option is still, which is similar to what I was saying, if you're even going to go the petrol or diesel route, is solar, right? But then solar is capital intensive, right? It's not as easy to sink into the ground as it is to sink the, what do you call it, to buy the gen
You're right.
and to, fuel it. So that amount that you probably used to fuel, a petrol generator for, depending on the size now, for 3 months might be what you will need to put a solar installation, that will run effectively and efficiently and carry what you needed to carry for that business. So which still comes back down to, look, the reality is you have to factor that into your sunk cost, into your startup cost, right? So when you look at the situation and you see what power is like, right, in the area you want to set up your business, because interesting thing is power is not the same all over the place. Some areas are better off and some areas are worse off. And the areas that are better off are the more expensive areas, right? So you look at the cost there, you have to factor it into your capital cost. Now the question is, you must know as you're going into a venture, and I always say, the thing that I love about business is it's mathematics. It is a game of numbers, right? That foundation, I mean, there are other things that affect whether a business succeeds or fails, right? The work culture, things like that really directly affects your staff turnover if you have an installation that you have staff, right? But foundationally is mathematics, right? So when you must know the maths of how many units of whatever it is I'm selling at the price at which I'm selling it, do I have to sell to achieve what we call break even, right? So break even there is, all right, I've done my calculations. This is how much it's going to cost me to run this business for 1 month. Even if I don't make any sale, right? This is my basic cost structure. There is now your cost, like I said, that has to do with, your overhead, which includes your cost increase as per increasing output, increasing volume, right? But this is my basic cost in this business. So even if I don't sell anything. So first of all, how long can you cover that basic cost structure without making any sale? Now, by the time you start making sales and your cost structure begins to increase marginally, how many units of what I'm selling do I have to sell to cover both my fixed cost structure? Because now you have to depreciate your fixed cost structure into like maybe a weekly or a monthly system, right? So if at the end of a month my revenues come to 50,000 naira, or let's say 500,000 naira, now in that 1 month my recurrent cost, you must know the precise numbers, right? If I'm selling chickens, how many chickens do I buy? That's recurrent. If I buy 50 chickens for 250,000 naira and I sell 50 chickens, I will make 350,000 naira, right? So there's 100,000 naira profit on 50 chickens. Great. Now your recurring cost for 50 chickens is 250. Now, apart from that, do you have one person that is at the store that you pay 25,000 naira monthly, right? So 250 has now become 275 because you're paying that one monthly as well. How much do I spend on power monthly? 50k. Now 275 has become 325, right? So you can see how you're beginning to build it out. Now, did I rent a small store that I'm operating out of? My 1 year rent is worth 500,000. Break that down into 12. So you add the month portion into that 325. So maybe that takes you to 400, right? And by the time you do that calculation, you will see that you can't stay with 50 chickens, right? Because your fixed margin on 50 chickens is 100,000 naira. Your cost structure for a month has already taken you above 100,000 naira, right? So how do I marginally increase my sales, but at the same time keep my cost at a level where it doesn't keep, chasing down my profit. It doesn't keep eating into my profit. And one of the strategies you want to use for that is on the supplier side, you want to get vendor relationships that give you some interesting concessions, either as a result of the volume that you're doing or some form of benefits at which. Now, the thing that makes the businesses that thrive is you want to see what's going on in the engine room. You just had to see what's going on in the back end. I mean, for example, Dangote is doing big stuff, refineries, huge. But going to his engine room, you will see that a lot of banks' money is inside what he's doing, right? Is he financing an entire refinery by himself? God forbid. Nobody does that. So you find that there's a lot of Femi Otenola's money is in there, banks' money is in there. Well, if this thing should sink, all of us were sinking together, right? So you want to go into the engine room and see how they have structured out their break-even process, and then that you do yours as well.
Excellent stuff. Lagos all and beyond. Hope you all have been keeping score. They need to have a structure when you start out, part of the key early steps. You need to do your cost benefit analysis. They need to get as much information as you can on what you're about to embark on. And as Dimo has just broken down, you got to know what it costs for you to make, a unit of what it is that you're selling, and that has to be at least your base point, so you know where to break even. So fantastic. So Deola, what about the regulatory environment? I have to, we have to keep this to keep these things key to dear Nigeria. How do SMEs navigate the regulatory environment?
I mean, there's no broad regulatory environment for all SMEs except maybe tax, right? Tax is the regulatory umbrella for everything called a business. There's some form of tax that you need to pay attention to. But then again, there are now subset regulatory requirements depending on the sector you're in. If you're in the financial sector, I mean, there are several. Are you in the investment banking sector? Are you in so what kind of licenses do you need? SEC license? Are you in the FX space? Bureau de change license? Do you want to be a deposit money house, a finance house license, right? You can get a finance house license for Lagos State strictly that allows you pull in deposit for Lagos State, but does not operate outside of Lagos State, right? So you need to get the license that helps you to do that. Do you want to operate as an IMTO, International Money Transfer Organization, right? You want to so regulatory concerns. Are you in the oil and gas sector? They also have their regulations. So you have to understand the regulations of the sector that you're in. But look, if we're speaking specifically within the Nigerian context, the sad reality is regulations go as far as what you have money to pay for, right? So if you're able to pay the right people, scratch the right hands, you're going to get away with a number of things. That's the reality. But we'll find out that getting away with those things will still, so what most businesses really just do is you have the licenses that at least you look good on the surface. So for example, if you're a bank or a microfinance bank, you have your MFB license, right? You have that. But whether you are paying the required dues on that license, you're keeping, because some regulatory requirements is not just about meeting it one off.
Right.
There's some form of continuity for some of them, right? There's some form of reapplication, some form of due that you should pay, some form of standard that you should keep for your license to not be withdrawn or taken away from you. So the question is, look at what happened in the Sanusi era, right? After he took over from Soludo, right?
Yes.
And Sanusi came on, and we saw what happened in the banking industry.
Yeah, the consolidation.
That happened. Oceanic went down the drain. We saw that. All of those were regulatory issues, right? Yeah. That was at the core of what was going on at that time in our financial industry. But somehow, prior to Sanusi, all those banks were in operation, and they were thriving, and they were working, and there was no issue. And one man comes on the scene, and all of a sudden, so many banks are in trouble. So what was going on before he came is what goes on in Nigeria, right? Which is, it is almost impossible to find what is working as it should work, right? So when it comes to the issue of regulation in Nigeria, in terms of, I'll be plain and honest with you, in terms of what works in Nigeria, your regulation must include knowing the right people, right? That's just the reality.
That's the facts.
Your regulation must include knowing the right people, being in the right circles, and having the right association and relationships, so you don't get submerged.
Fantastic. Gosh, how much time are we?
We've run out of time.
I have more questions. I have more questions. Look,
we've run out of time.
Great information. Please share your Twitter or Instagram.
So my Instagram handle is at Debola_Ajayi. You can find me on Instagram at Debola_Ajayi.
Fantastic. Reach out to him. It does a lot. Debola, I have to have you back. There's tons of questions in the SME space to ask. So thank you so much, and thank you all for your Sheon Gilbert messages as well. Shola, I guess we run into personal finance tomorrow.
Oh yeah. And this was just there was just so much in there, and I appreciate the fact that even though the time didn't exactly allow for more, which seems like free information that people should pay for. But I'm pretty sure hopefully when we check you out on Twitter, I can just dish out some of these nuggets, just so that we can learn more and not just buy or start a business that would involve using coconut oil that costs about $7,000 and such. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Very well.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Yeah. And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps it up for Business Hub here on Smooth 98.1. Smooth Drive continues.
Right.
Everything business.
All right.
Tools and tips for a successful business.
We need to have a proactive youth if we're